Hello and welcome to court. Today I wanted to talk about some DEI measures that I think could be put in place to help the historical costuming community. But Muse, what is DEI? DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI measures and work make communities more inclusive and stronger together, but more importantly, they make communities safer for, the marginalized people within the community. Notice how I said DEI work? I'm not just talking about Black people here, I'm talking about a lot of marginalized groups. A lot of folks can be helped by this type of work and these type of measures that could be put into place. But I do want to do a disclaimer. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I happen to be just literally one Black queer person, literally just one. Do you see multiples of me? That's because I'm literally just one. These are my own opinions, and I actually welcome people to bring their constructive thoughts to the comment section, to their own content, to other platforms, because I want to see what ideas other people have as well. I definitely am not going to be able to hit every tiny, minute little aspect that could ever happen because this video would be super long. But I do think that this should open the floor to create a working space where people can talk out their constructive ideas. You might be sitting there wondering, literally, why is this needed? I've already done 2 videos on some of the topics that have come out throughout this past year that have really affected people within the historical costuming community. Specifically, my videos have talked about things that have affected Black people within the historical costuming community. But I am by no means the only person who has noticed things that have affected their community, that has spoken out, and that has been shut down. So, for about the past year, I've put out a lot of educational content that can mainly be found on Instagram, which you can find in the description box below. And I thought, yes, this is great. Educational content is great. Letting people know that you are hurt is great. But how do we prevent things from happening in the future? I will mainly be focusing on in-person events, as the internet is a very large space. You can't. How do you put in measures for the entire internet? If you could, we would literally have no problems on the internet. And that is not a thing that exists on the interwebs. The first one is a really easy one. Intentionally invite marginalized people to private and public events, parties, soirees, whatever the case is. And when I say marginalized people, I'm also talking about the global majority. So, it's so important to invite marginalized people to these spaces because a lot of times if we don't see ourselves, we don't necessarily know that we are welcome. It's not safe for us to just make that assumption that we will be in a safe place and we will be welcome and embraced with open arms, even if we have a friend there. And I quite literally mean a friend or 2. A friend or 2 isn't enough to make sure someone feels safe, make sure there are enough things in place so that the person can actively participate in the event or party or whatever the case is. So having us there, intentionally inviting us there, is really, really important. But in order to invite us places, you have to make sure that the event is accessible to everyone. This one is kind of like an onion. It has layers. Making sure an event is accessible for me as a Black queer person means that we are not somewhere that was formerly or might currently be a sundown town. Research has been done on this space, on this hotel, on this convention center, on the town, on the surrounding towns, on the police stations, on the restaurants, on the hotels that you're inviting guests to stay at. There has been a lot of research put into this event so that I know that I'm not showing up in the middle of nowhere, and I'm possibly in a very dangerous situation. Making an event accessible also might mean that you're setting aside tickets for people who are low income so that they can still go. Remember, most of these events are pretty difficult to get to. If you don't live in the place that it's taking place, you have to get there somehow. Drive, fly, by boat. I don't know, maybe you can apparate. I don't really know your life, but you have to get to wherever you're going. That costs money. If you don't have family or friends local, you have to pay for a hotel. Even if you have family or friends local, you still need to have food to eat. You need to be able to create a costume for this event, or maybe you want to wear something you already have, but you need to zhuzh it up a bit. That all takes money. Tickets also cost money. In order for an event to be accessible to folks of different incomes, you may need to set aside tickets for those who would love to go but simply cannot afford to. And the last point that I want to make here, which is equally important, is that in order for an event or whatever we're calling this to be accessible, it means that there has to be actual work put into making sure the building itself is accessible to everyone. So making sure that there is proper parking, making sure that there are ramps or an elevator, maybe ramps and an elevator depending on the building. Maybe you need a sign language interpreter on hand. Maybe you need to make sure that there's a relief station for people who are bringing their service animals. Maybe there needs to be a quiet space for people who have sensory needs. Maybe it's not a maybe. You need all of those things. You need all of those things to make sure that your event or whatever you are calling it is accessible to folks. All three of these very small points that I picked out should not be something that you ask after the fact. It should be something that is on the forefront of your mind. If people cannot get into the event, physically get into the event is not accessible. If people don't have a place to sit down, possibly a place to sit down that is reserved for people who need to sit down and take breaks, and it's not accessible. If people have to worry about their safety while traveling to your event, the event is not accessible. If people can't go to your event simply because it's out of their budget, when like you could do a giveaway to marginalized groups who are low income, like it's so simple, your event is not accessible. The next one is really, really important. You need to make sure that you are publicizing the accessibility of your event, especially if this is an event that has already been held in the past and did not previously have these accessibility aids in place. Unfortunately, someone won't know if an event is accessible until someone goes and says it's not or it is, unless you have a very clearly labeled space on your website, Instagram, wherever you are, blasting out this event, Snapchat, I don't know, this is what the young folks do. But wherever you are blasting out this event, you need to make it known in a clearly marked space that this event is accessible and how it's accessible. No one wants to find out that they are now in a dangerous or unfortunate or sad or whatever situation when they get to an event. They want to be prepared. They want to know in advance. If you can put where you need to park for this event, if you don't need accessible parking, you can put how many spaces are available, or if it's limited or unlimited, or if extra spaces will be blocked off. You can let people know the full scope of the situation. You can let people know where the ramp is located. You can let people know where the elevator is located. All of these things help ease people's mind. Making things more accessible makes the space more equitable for everyone. It is important that your event uses gender-inclusive language in all of the flyers, in the actual space with the people that are on staff or volunteering or possibly holding their shop there as a vendor. Gender-inclusive language needs to be used. It's also literally not hard, especially in a historical context. Ladies and gentlemen, no, all of our esteemed guests. I mean, there are others you don't specifically have to use that terminology, but using gender inclusive language means that you are speaking to all of your guests. Make people feel welcome at your event. Now, I'm obviously talking about the audience or the group of people who are watching and not necessarily like reenactors, right? If you're supposed to be playing King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, I wouldn't expect for there to be gender neutral terms used for them like we know their gender, right? I'm talking about the people who may be watching this reenactment take place, or maybe it is someone buying a ticket to your event. Maybe it is someone who's being greeted at the door of your event or at the gates of your event, right? This is where you could use those gender neutral terms. This is also where you could possibly have buttons or ribbons or something else where people can wear their pronouns on them, whether they are cis or trans. This will help people feel a lot more comfortable and really open the awareness of how much that language does come into play. Marginalized people should be in positions of power or on boards, when that's available, for events and for spaces. I want to be clear here and say visible places of power. If I have to guess if anyone on there might possibly be marginalized, it is not visible. This typically comes into play when people want to talk about how the global majority is being properly represented. If the option to put someone there who is qualified, who knows the area depending on the event, or has the education depending on the event, comes up, put us there. I cannot tell you how many times I immediately go to the About page or Meet the Team page for different companies and websites just to see if I can find myself. I mean, I have quite literally searched through entire websites to see if I can find anyone who might even kind of resemble me, only to find absolutely no one. This affects whether or not people may feel comfortable going to your event or to your space. It's very hard to feel like you're going to be heard and represented well when you can't see someone that even remotely resembles you. Now, I understand that the world is a very large place and it would quite literally be impossible to have someone from every country in the world, someone that has every single disability that has ever existed, every single type of neurodivergent person ever to have ever existed, every religion that has ever existed. Like, I understand that's ridiculous, but like there should be some variety going on. If there is a board of 10 people and I can't find one person that's marginalized, just one, there should be more than one, but just one, there's an issue there. There should be a written, agreed upon DEI commitment made by all parties involved who are selling things, are volunteers, or are hosting the event. This one might seem a little silly, but if you've ever been a vendor or have ever worked with a space before, you know that a contract is getting signed by all parties no matter what. That might be as simple as this is how much you're getting paid, or this is how much it costs to rent a booth here, or maybe it is, hey, you're agreeing upon these specific dates, show up to these dates. This is when you're supposed to be volunteering, working, whatever the case is. There is always something written down that people have to agree upon. So it is not out of the realm of imagination to further that contract to make sure that these things aren't being looked over. This is not strange in any other space, like including other adjacent spaces like movies or entertainment or theater or museums. People have to agree to not be bigots and to like actively do better than like maybe they were raised to do. When money is changing hands between vendors and community planners, or community planners and a space, or whatever the case is, security, custodial, whatever the case is, DEI needs to be at the forefront of folks' minds just as much as making sure that everybody gets their shmoney. How many times in this video am I going to say the acronym for diversity, equability, and inclusion in the wrong order because of dyslexia? I feel like it's already happened, and if it did, no it didn't. Make sure that you pay marginalized people for their DEI work. That's a must. It must happen. This can actually look different depending on the organization or company or group. Some people might want to have, DEI workers on staff 100% of the time. And some places just don't have enough volume for that, don't have enough employees for that. That could be a very easy case of bringing in people to do that work maybe quarterly or semi-annually or whatever the case is, so that that work still gets done, but you might not have the amount of employees, or you might be working by yourself, and the need to have a full staff or even a half staff or even just one person who is knowledgeable in DEI work on staff might not be something that needs to happen full time. Just because that person, people, group of people, department doesn't need to be on full time doesn't mean that you don't pay them. Still pay marginalized people for their work. This last point that I'm going to hit is a big one and an important one. Create in-person and online spaces where white supremacists do not feel welcome. They feel uncomfortable. They feel like they shouldn't be in that space at all. Loudly and boldly make them feel unwelcome, because not everybody wants to be educated. Some people just want to hurt folks. And in person, if anyone shows signs or outwardly shows that they are a white supremacist, they have got to be gone from in-person events. Not welcome at all. Tickets not sold to them. Tickets refunded to them if they do manage to buy one. Not welcome on the property. Blocked. It is a safety concern. Folks can't be out here trying to take white supremacists' money. Folks can't be out here teeter-tottering on the line of maybe I'm a white supremacist, maybe I'm not a white supremacist. Like, no, it needs to be a hard line in the sand. Just like I said at the beginning of this video, I obviously could not hit every single point that needed to be hit out there, but I really do want to open the floor up for people to talk about some of the things I talked about in this video, things that I obviously could not get to in the comment sections on their own platform. Wherever the case is, get the conversation started. And if you don't think that this is an issue in the historical costuming community, it is. You're wrong. You're not welcome in the comments. I will embarrass you. I will embarrass you and your mama. Don't come in my comments being messy. But if you are looking to expound on some things, maybe get into some detail, maybe just talk with other folks and think about how we can constructively just do better as a community, please feel free to comment below. I will not talk about your mama. These points that I made make spaces more inclusive for everyone. It increases the awareness around our community and the far, far-reaching branches of our community to more people. A lot of our community, the historical costuming community, is based in education, and you always want education to feel inclusive and equitable and diverse. You want people to see themselves in history. That's what makes people want to learn about history. They want to be that person or they can relate to that person, or they can relate to that thing. That's what makes our community our community. And it's really hard to have that space when not everyone feels welcome in the community. Thank you so much for watching this video. Check out our links below for our Ko-fi page and membership, where we do have gender neutral terms if you choose to sign up. Our Instagram, and another link. I don't know what it is. I should look at that. Oh, it's our TikTok. I haven't posted on there in a while, but there's some fun stuff. Go check that out too. We are now officially in chapter 2 of our channel. We have completed our first year. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here as a member of our beautiful court as it has flourished handsomely. Thank you so much for all of you. Until next time.